Welcome to this session where I'll be training aspiring educators for an interview. This session is about the preparation for an interview. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification button. There is the first video, which was about the process of job application for post level number 1 of an educator. I was taking you through packaging of the application forms and the shortlisting processes. So if you haven't watched that part, please make sure that you go and watch. Some people, they've been communicating with me saying that the video was very helpful because it made them to land an interview. So they were shortlisted after following the guideline that I was giving. Okay, without wasting much of your time, let us go to the business, the process of interview. After shortlisting is the process of finding the 5 most suitable candidates for a teaching post. After that process, the 5 top candidates that are selected will need to go to the second stage, which is the interview. The interview, which is occurring verbally. I've just said to you that in Limpopo, we use the ELRC Collective Agreement number 2 of 2020. So the ELRC Collective Agreement number 2 of 2020, it is the one that guides the Department of Education in the process of recruitment of educators for all levels, including the post of a circuit manager. But since this training is about post level number 1 of a CS1 teacher, that's what we are going to focus at. Let us go to the page, which is schedule number 2, interview guideline from the collective agreement document. That is page number 30 of the collective agreement of 2020. Then let us go to the one of post level number 1. Don't make a mistake, because the first one is the one for a principal, a score sheet for a principal, then the score sheet of a deputy principal, of a head of department. Then in page number 34, that's where we are going to have a score sheet of an educator post level number 1, CS1. You can see the score sheet as it appears on your screen, that it is written score sheet at the top, then the post number, the candidate, and the puzzle of the candidate. Do not worry if you do not have a puzzle, it does not contribute anything. We are going to go to instruction. The instruction says that candidate will be interviewed on the dimension indicated below. Allocate a mark or a score on each dimension in the space provided. Score mark should be allocated according to the following scale. We've got a scale of 1 up to 5. 1, which is weak. 2, which is fair. 3, which is satisfactory. 4, which is good. And 5, it is outstanding. So we have dimensions. Dimension number 1 up to dimension number 6. The dimension, that is the foundation or the basis which they need to draw their question from. So the interviewers, when they interview a candidate, they need to base their question from the dimension. It means that as an educator, when you go for an interview, they may try to phrase questions differently, but at the end of the day, all the questions they are going to lead to the same response, meaning that it is important for you when you're about to go to the interview to prepare and have the collective agreement and use that collective agreement thoroughly. We've got dimension number one, which is knowledge of learning area. It has got 6 marks. That is, its weight is 6, is the one with the highest weight. In that question, they're going to ask you about the content, the subject itself. Then we've got dimension number two, that is knowledge of assessment. They want you, if you know the assessment techniques that are used at school as a teacher. Then dimension number three, that is the classroom management skills. And dimension number four, that is the administration skills. Then dimension number five, communication skills. Dimension number six, that is stakeholders relations. So I'll be training you on how best can you talk to all these dimensions. Okay, let us start from dimension number one. Under dimension number one, that's where they are going to ask you a question based on the subject matter. The question will be based on the subject that you are attending the interview for. If it is English, they will ask you a question that relates to a particular topic or a concept in English. If it's an interview for physical sciences, they're going to ask you a question that is relating to physical sciences. You'll remember that I'm a physical science teacher. That's why you see this digital multimeter and many things around me. There's another multimeter and the spectroscope. So I'm a science teacher. Okay, back to the dimension number one, that is knowledge of learning area. Many people, they make a mistake when it comes to this dimension. Let's say you are coming for an interview for life sciences, then they ask you, how can you best teach the topic of mitosis? It's a life science interview. How can you best teach the topic of mitosis? Many people, they make a mistake of, when they hear this question and you find that they know the topic of mitosis, they just start to explain the process of mitosis, that I'm going to introduce that mitosis is a process of cell division which will result into identical cell. They start explaining all the processes of mitosis. And that's wrong. That's not how we do it. When they ask you, how are you going to teach so and so topic? The first thing that you need to do, you start from the lesson preparation, because you cannot be able to teach a particular concept without preparing for it. So when you answer this dimension, you need to tell us that you are going to prepare the lesson. You are going to prepare the exercise that you are going to give the learners for that particular lesson. You are going to consult the examination guidelines. You are going to consult the annual teaching plan, and you are going to consult the textbook if you are using a textbook. So that's then you are going to teach. That's then you can start to explain that particular concept that you were asked. As I gave you an example, that they ask you, how best can you teach the topic of mitosis? So you're going to start by, I'm going to check my annual teaching plan. I consult the concept that I need to teach. Then I check my exam guidelines. I consult the things that I need to teach. Then from those documents, I develop a lesson plan. I consult the CAPS document. After, when the lesson plan is ready, I also include the classwork or the task that I'm going to give the learners to assess that topic that you have asked me, that they've asked you. Then I'll start to teach. I'll introduce the lesson in this way. I will ask learners what they already know. Then I'll start to teach. Then you start to explain that subject matter of that particular subject that you are being interviewed for. So don't make a mistake of, when you are asked how are you going to teach a particular concept, you start explaining the content. You need to start from giving the layout of the lesson that you are going to prepare the lesson. For example, you can say, all my lesson will be based on the ATP, on the work schedule. I will use my lesson plan based on a theme on the ATP. You understand? My lesson plan will show the grade, the topic, the contest, learning outcome, assessment, stands, lesson outcome, as well as duration. By lesson plan, you can explain how you are going to prepare your lesson. It's very important. So that's how you get to interact with that one of dimension number one, which is knowledge of learning area. Okay, we are moving forward, are coming to the next dimension. The next dimension is knowledge of assessment. Knowledge of assessment. How are you going to assess your learners? You know that assessment is very important. So, under knowledge of assessment, they want to know how are you going to assess your learners. So, they may frame a question anyhow they like, but at the end of the day, the question will be addressing the same thing: your knowledge of assessment. What assessment techniques do you know? How are you going to use those assessment techniques? You can start by explaining what assessment is, or you give the importance of assessment. Like, assessment of learners' work is very important in measuring learners' achievement, progress, as well as showing where learners have difficulties. You can start by saying that introduction, that assessment of learners is very important in measuring learners' achievement, progress, and as well as showing learners' difficulties. That is assessment. Then you say there are many types of assessment techniques. You mentioned those assessment techniques. We have got baseline assessment, we have got diagnostic assessment, we have got formative assessment, and we have summative assessment. Then you start to explain how are you going to use all the assessment that you have given. How are you going to use them? Then let me explain each assessment individually. The baseline assessment. This is an assessment that I'm going to use at the beginning of a chapter, at the beginning of a term, at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of a learner's experience. I'm going to use a baseline assessment to check what learners already know and what they already understand. I'm going to use the baseline assessment to base my lesson, so that I can know if learners have difficulties and how far do I need to go deep in my teaching. That's how you can use a baseline assessment. A baseline assessment is about finding out what learners already know from the previous grade, or from the previous term, or from the previous chapter. So that's what baseline is all about. Then we come to diagnostic assessment. I will use diagnostic assessment to diagnose learning difficulties, learning problems, and if learners do not understand. So, diagnostic assessment is simply just about diagnosing the learners' difficulties. If learners have got a challenge in understanding a certain topic or they've got misconceptions, so you use diagnostic assessment to diagnose those misconceptions so that if learners have misconceptions, then you teach them again. So, diagnostic assessment is all about diagnosing learning difficulties. Then we come to the third one, the formative assessment. The formative assessment is an informal assessment which take place throughout the lesson. It can take place in the form of a classwork or a homework or a question that can be posed during the lesson. It is formative, it is not recorded. So I can use formative assessment in the form of a classwork. After delivering a lesson, I give my learners a classwork to try and find out if they understood the concepts so that I can make a decision. Because assessment is all about informing the educator to make a decision. So assessment is about informing the educator. Then we go to the fourth assessment, that is summative assessment. Summative assessment is used mostly at the end of a term and at the end of the year. It determines if learners are supposed to progress to the next grade or they must be retained. It's summative assessment is formal, it is recorded, and it is used by schools and departments to determine if learners are going to the next grade or not. It is mostly in the form of exams. It is mostly in the form of the SBA, the school-based assessment that are recorded, that are added with the exam at the end of the year, and it is going to give learners a year mark, which is going to be added with the final exam mark. Then it determines if a learner is supposed to progress to the next grade or not. That's what summative is all about. So when it comes to knowledge of assessment, you need to give information on how are you going to assess your learners. How are you going to assess your learners? So that's how you need to respond to that one of assessment. Then let us move to dimension number three. Dimension number three is about classroom management. How are you going to manage your classroom? As a teacher, you will spend most of your time in the classroom. And it's important for you to have good classroom management skills. So when you respond to this one of classroom management, you must be systematic and you must be strategic. One of the skills that they use to manage a classroom, they use what we call polk. They use what we call polk. Polk is a mnemonic device which stands for planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So P under polk stands for planning. So you can use planning to manage your classroom. How are you going to use planning to manage your classroom? The first thing that you are going to do is to prepare for your lesson. You are going to prepare for your lesson. You're going to prepare the assessment that they are going to give the learners. You prepare all the teaching and learning aids that are needed for that particular lesson. In so doing, you will make learners to pay attention to what you are doing, because the learning experience that you are going to give them, they will be well planned. So it is very important to ensure that you prepare your lesson properly before presenting to the classroom. This includes making a research, bringing teaching aid or learning materials so that you manage your classroom. As a teacher, you can't go to the class and while you are in the class, you do not even have the classwork that you are going to give them. You are just going to go to the class and you do not know what they are going to do there. It will cause your class to be unmanageable. It will cause your class to be disruptive. So the first thing that you are going to do is to learn. Then we go to number two, under Polk, that is organizing. So, organizing is the manner in which you are going to arrange your learners in the class. You can arrange your learners in the class and you create rows and columns in the classroom. You arrange desks in a manner whereby you are going to move in between. As you teach and move in between, you will be able to give attention to all your learners in the class. That's a way of organizing. You ensure that your class is neat, your class is clean. It is a way of organizing. You arrange chairs and table properly so that you are able to move around. You paste pictures in your class. You paste charts. It will be a way of organizing your class. Your class will be well organized for teaching and learning to take place. So organizing is also one of the skills that are very much important in the classroom. You can organize your class by making sure that all the learners that are notorious that you have identified, you put them to sit in front during your lesson. It will be another way of organizing the class. You make sure that you have the class timetable which is pasted on the wall so that when it is your time, the learners will know that, oh, now it is 9:30, it is the time of teacher so and so. That is a way of organizing. I can say, if I were you, I was going to present it like this, under organizing. I will arrange boys and girls separately in the class register. I will draw the attendance register and place it on the table. The register will be marked at the last period. I will arrange a reading corner in the classroom. I will paste various educational posters on the wall. I will always make sure that I arrange learners into groups, pairs, and or individual according to the lesson. I will place a dustbin in the corner. You see, that is organizing your classroom. You can't have a classroom that does not even have a dustbin where you can throw your papers. So that small detail of organizing, it plays a role. So that's how you can organize your class. Then we not dwell much time under organizing. Then we come to leading. We come to leading. How are you going to lead? The most important thing when it comes to leading, it's you as a teacher providing leadership. The first thing is, as a teacher, I will lead as an example. I will arrive on time in class. I will dress properly so that the learners can follow me, and I make sure that I become a role model to the learners. I will choose class reps, a boy and a girl, in my class. I will arrange the class to have cleaning register that I'm going to post in the wall or a notice board. So that is another way of leading. You lead as an example, you dress properly, you arrive on time, you choose the class rep, you paste the cleaning timetable for learners, so you will be providing leadership. You will be providing leadership. So that's how you lead as a teacher. You lead as an example, become a role model, dress properly, and in so doing, you'll be providing leadership. That's leadership. The last one, that is controlling. Controlling is about ensuring that you maintain order in your class. How do you control? You enforce order and discipline. As a teacher, you make sure that you enforce order and discipline in the classroom. You enforce punctuality in your class. Learners need to know that when it is your time, they must be seated. The books are out. The calculator is out if your subject uses a calculator. All materials that are needed, they are there. They are available. You are controlling. You use an attendance register. The learners that are absent, they are marked. That is controlling. You create rules with the learners. You create class rules with the learners and you control them through those rules. So that's what controlling is all about. And remember, we are under the classroom management. Classroom management. So classroom management, you use POC, youth planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So that's how we do the classroom management in a systematic way. Okay, then let us come to number 4, administration skill. Administration skill. It is important that as a teacher, you administrate your work correctly, because one of your duties as your teacher is to be an administrator. How are you going to administrate your work? It is easy to do administration. You can do administration by creating portfolios. You create a teacher's file, you create learner's file, you create the subject file. In this file, the file is going to have a cover page. The teacher's file, it will have a cover page. It will have your name, the subject, the district, the circuit, your email, your cell number, and the name of the school, the EMIS number of the school. All that is going to be on the cover page. Then in the file, you are going to put the mark sheets. Mark sheets, you put them there. You need to keep the following records: the timetable, educator's portfolio, assessment record, learner's portfolio, class register, time register, TQMS file. As a teacher, you must have the copy of the school general timetable and paste it at the wall of your class, and at your own wall where you are going to check that timetable. And then you must have your own personal timetable, which will be showing your subject, and you must easily have access to such a timetable. You must have the lesson plans, the annual teaching plan, and the learner's activity, and the record of the assessment. Those are records. I've already indicated to you that when you create a file, you must put what in the file. So administration is all about filing. It is all about filing. So that's what administration is all about. It's all about profiling. Okay, let us go to the next dimension. That is dimension number 5. Dimension number 5 is about communication skills. Dimension number 5 is about communication skills. How are you going to communicate? There are two types of communications that we are going to use at your workplace. You are going to use verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Under non-verbal communication, we have a WhatsApp where when you send a text message. We have circulars. We have what you can paste on the boards. You have the classwork. You have tests. All those things that are print. Everything in print. It is non-verbal. Then under verbal, you will communicate verbally, where you articulate yourself to your teachers, to your colleagues. I mean, you are going to teach the learners and you'll be verbal. That's a verbal communication. You are going to call some of your colleagues. That is verbal communication. So it's very important for you to understand that you are going to communicate using verbal and non-verbal. Now, you need to indicate how are you going to use the non-verbal and the verbal communication with your learners, then your colleagues, then other stakeholders, the SMT and the SGB. So you may respond like this, that with the learners, I will communicate with them verbally when I teach in the class. When I conduct a morning devotion, I give instruction inside the class and outside the class. That's how you can communicate with learners verbally. With learners, I can communicate non-verbally. When I give them written exercises, I give them report card, and I can also communicate them through notice board. That's how you can communicate with learners. Then with colleagues, I will communicate with my colleagues verbally at the staff meeting, at learning area committee meeting. I can call them telephonically, and we can talk verbally at the staff room. So that is verbal communication with your colleagues. What about the non-verbal communication that you can have with your colleagues? When you are conducting IQMS evaluation, when demanding or submitting written report, when you are demanding or submitting written reports to your HODs, through reading and signing the circular, signing the attendance register to show that you came to school. That's how you can communicate with your colleagues. You can also communicate with them through notice board. Another thing, how are you going to communicate with parents? How are you going to communicate with parents? Because parents are also people you need to communicate with as a teacher. With parents, you can communicate with them verbally during parent meeting, during visits at school, when you are discussing their child's progress, and during community meeting. That's how you can interact verbal with the parents. You can also communicate with parents non-verbally through child progress report. When you give them the progress report, you can communicate with them through notice boards. You can communicate with them through posters and adverts that the school can publish. So whenever you communicate a message, you must remember to be clear and you avoid confusion and contradiction. So communication is very important in the education sector. So that's how we can best explain communication on an interview. Okay, then let us move forward and go to the last dimension. The last dimension. The last dimension is stakeholders relation. How are you going to relate with stakeholders? If you want, you can start by mentioning the stakeholders in the school. In the school, we have many stakeholders. We've got the learners, which is the stakeholder, teachers, SMT, SGB, and parents in general. They are a stakeholder. So stakeholders, it's all the people that I've mentioned: parents, colleagues, SMT, SGB, and learners. So how are you going to relate with them? This dimension is about how are you going to conduct yourself toward these stakeholders to make sure that you do your duties and do what is expected out of you. How are you going to conduct yourself towards the stakeholders at school? First, the learners. You need to respect them so that they can be able to respect you. You need to show them love. You need to make sure that you assist them. You attend the funerals at their home. If there are challenges, you intervene and you assist. That's how you get to relate with learners. When learners see that as a teacher, you care, they tend to change their behavior and they start to be positive. So it is very important that you show learners love, you become friendly to them, but you become firm, you become approachable, you guide them all with respect, you keep a safe distance with the learners, encourage them to work harder, and you make sure that you do not discriminate the learners. You make sure that you do not discriminate the learners, maybe according to their sexual orientation, according to their gender, um, the religion. You don't discriminate. That's how you can relate with learners. Then with colleagues, how do you relate with your colleagues, your fellow teachers? You make sure that they are always helpful. You encourage hard work and diligence. You share ideas with your teachers to improve the outcome at your school. You encourage your teachers to further their studies. Encourage cooperation. You avoid gossiping and division within the school. So that's one of the best way you can relate with the teachers as a stakeholders at school. Then how are you going to need to relate with the SGB and the SMT? The best thing is to have an open door policy. Always encourage them to take place in school activities and encourage strong relationship between school and parents. Always strive for parents to volunteer their services at school. You must strive so that parents they volunteer their services at school. Encourage parents to register for ABETS. So that's how you are going to interact with the SGB and SMT. Then there are other authorities in the education department that you need to interact with. There are other authorities in the education department that we need to interact with. And those authorities include the second office, the district office, the Department of Education actual. How are you going to interact with them? You are going to interact with them by reading the circulars. As you know that the department is always forwarding circulars. So you interact with them by reading their circulars. Then you obey all the rules and regulations that is expected about you as a teacher. And you make sure that you work according to policy and school regulation. So that's how you are going to interact with the Department of Education. That is the authority. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we expect when you come to an interview. We may try to phrase the question in a different way, but all of them, they are leading to the same answer. Then you are going to be employed for that job because the panelists are going to be pleased with you in the manner in which you respond. So I hope that this video is very helpful, which is